Hi, this video is just for fun and for your entertainment. I am not advocating any gear purchases whatsoever, and I'm absolutely not here to brag about my compressors, outboard and such. However, many of you are constantly wondering what exactly would analog gear bring to your modern metal mixes, and today we're here to explore exactly that and bring some value to you. We'd compare a full digital modern metal mix with the same song, level matched, mixed with my outboard gear, at least for the main buses, and we will see whether the euphoric analog characters, true op-amp saturation and the real behavior of the compressors is basically worth it. Let's see what happens. Curious to know which mix, analog or digital, you prefer better? Let me know in the comment section. Hey, I'm Dr. Trubetskov, the mad scientist of metal, and I'm here to bring valuable information as I learn the modern side of things. Mate, you like and subscribe and to never miss it out. Let's do it. Let's get a bit nerdy here and discuss how the digital mix was done in the first place and what sort of challenges does the in-the-box approach bring to you. By the way, these are the multi-tracks by Brian Hood, 456recordings.com, standalone complex, true old school metalcore, cool stuff. You can get them for free if you subscribe to Brian's newsletter. I'm just grateful to be able to access this. And man, I just gotta say, I got better. I mixed this song first in June 2022, almost a year ago, and opening that mix back up yesterday kinda sucked big time. So just wanted to say that I'm really grateful for the growth and for URM community to push me further down the line and get better results, I guess. So gratitude is the answer, and for you as a mixer or as a musician mixing your own stuff, you will inevitably keep getting better. And if you're not looking back at your mixes and they kind of don't suck, something's wrong and you should progress more. On that, let's dive into the session and see what is going on here. In the session, the layout is kind of typical for me, and it is complex, so I'll try to briefly explain how things are routed. So we got all the drums here, going into the drum bus, and the key thing for this demonstration is that drum bus is compressed with the SSL style compressor, and then we have a fair few of parallel processing and reverbs, which then assemble into the sum bus, drum sum. Similarly, bass, guitars, synths, vocals and effects are assembled in here, and all of these go into the mix bus, which is also compressed with an SSL style compressor, but also with some Kush style Novatron compression and Kush Bliss compression as well. And these are the key things that I discarded and replaced with my outboard chain in order to showcase what it does in terms of compression and saturation to these elements. And now, looking at this mix, the thing that I noticed the most for in-the-box producers is we may be stuck in the small tweak fest, meaning we add a plugin and it adds something, but we do not push it too hard because, especially back in the day, plugins used to not behave that well when pushed hard. So instead we use one plugin with moderate compression, and then we stack up another one with some more moderate compression, and another one with some more saturation and compression, and all these small things ultimately accumulate in good sound. But the issue that you may be experiencing is that it causes fatigue. the smaller the changes are, the less noticeable these elements behave, the more fatigued you may feel. And if you experience fatigue, you may miss the big picture. And so that's just one of the big challenges, in my opinion, of in-the-box, complete in-the-box mixing that all of us should be aware of. Moving forward, for the analog mix, I stripped off all the bus processing and replaced it with my analog saturation and compression chain. And I'm not even gonna talk about what I'm using for the purpose of clear, unbiased demonstration in this video here. I also used my SSL style compressor for drums, for drum bus, similar to what it was here as a plugin. I used some saturation for bass bus. I compressed guitar bus with my outboard compressor, and I ran my vocals through outboard EQ. That's about it, and let's see what that has brought to the mix. So when mixing with outboard gear, you have the luxury to experience the real behavior of the real circuits. Therefore, you can push them harder, and they do not crap up, at least as much as plugins do. And you may push them harder, and you may achieve the results, therefore, faster. You may add more top end with the EQ, and it would not get as brittle as plugins. And you may compress the heck, and literally the heck, out of your elements, and it still sounds good and pretty much as intended. It sounds heavily compressed, and that's something that you may desire for your elements to be. Another obvious advantage of using hybrid workflow is you can get some unique tones. The chain that you are assembling may represent some unique flavors that you specifically enjoy and that are not present in the box. And that's cool, that's something to try, and the question is whether the uniqueness and the elusive flavor is worth the effort, or you may mess up the balance and the tone with that. And that's something up to the engineer, up to the operator of the chain to get experience with and to nail ultimately. And finally, in my experience, hybrid chain, analog chain, actually can mess things up. Specifically, if you're saturating some elements, if you're heavily compressing them, their average level grows, and then therefore you have to carefully compensate for it. And in this example, for instance, I applied analog gear just as a strip back final step, which is not the ideal application. One should probably start mixing with outboard in the middle of the session so that the characters kind of stack together. And as a result, my guitars, after being pushed through the compressor, kind of lost the brightness, so I had to go back and compensate with digital EQ, and that can mess things up in a different way. So just to keep in mind that this comparison is not exactly apples to apples, as any comparison of this kind would be. Okay, time to make some side-by-side comparisons and see what objective results we can get. The mixes are level matched carefully and then ran into limiter ever so slightly to kind of amplify their characters. Sweet. So these obviously sound different, and there is a significant difference in how transient material translates. The digital mix sounds a little tighter and a little bit more harsh on the transients. If you listen to the kick and maybe the snare and maybe the top end of those elements, digital mix, these elements kind of sit in their space a bit more narrower and punch a bit harder. They sound a little bit, a little teeny tiny bit harsh. Whereas in the analog mix, they sound really fat and rich, And that mix, to me, after listening to it a bit, sounds more pushed in a good way. But at the same time, analog mix sounds a bit smoother, more saturated, so transients are more chopped off, it sounds a bit fatter, and that may not be exactly the character one desires for such modern music, such digitized music. So it's a matter of very carefully selecting which characters you are after and maybe tweaking them further. So I'm sure that having a tighter character for this mix with the outboard chain is also possible, but one would need more time and inserting that chain earlier in the process to achieve exactly that. I hope that you find this comparison valuable and you've learned something about digital versus analog applied to modern metal mixes. Please let me know in comments what you think is better and what would you prefer applied to your music. And until next time, rock on!